What's going on YouTube? Sean, aka JT's Reborn here, and welcome back to another edition of After the Movie. Currently at my house right now. Just got done watching The Last Voyage of the Demeter, the new Dracula film directed by the guy who made Troll Hunter and a few other things. I mean, there's maybe a few people I recognize that were in the movie. There's that David Dashta, I can't pronounce his name. Corey Hawkins was in it, and then there was a few other actors. But basically, this storyline in itself is kind of based on one of the chapters of Bram Stoker's novel. That was the sailing of the Demeter. In the novel, of course, Dracula is put aboard the ship, and the ship has just sailed from Romania to London, and the entire crew is basically gobbled up and consumed. So now there's been various versions of it that have kind of been tweaked around depending on where you go, from the movies and all that other stuff. So it just kind of takes a chapter from a novel that's not really been explored much and just makes an entire movie about it, because there was a long voyage from Romania to London on this basically this sailing buffet, if you will, for Dracula. And that's pretty much what the movie is. It kind of has a little bit of Alien vibes. There's a few sequences that kind of reminded me of Jeepers Creepers with the way Dracula is portrayed in this film. And there's some really good, solid acting in this movie all around. From all the actors are giving it their all. And the score by Mary McCreary, of course, he's a very talented composer. He did Godzilla King of the Monsters, God of War, and various other things, but there's a lot of God of War type music sprinkled in throughout this movie. And the production value is actually quite good for this type of film. Now, I didn't really see too much marketing for this thing. I kind of just went into it. I saw one or two trailers for it, and they were playing Smashing Pumpkins. Despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage, and I kind of like that aspect to it all. But yeah, so this one, it's an interesting concept. One I'm surprised they haven't really done for a Dracula film, where the entire thing is set on the Demeter ship. But I think it really worked for the most part. And this is a film where everyone's basically doomed, and well, maybe everyone's doomed. I'm not going to give everything away in this particular video, but I thought, like I said, the film, the way it was shot, the way it was acted, the way it was directed, I thought everything was done pretty well. But there are some weak aspects to it, namely in Dracula himself. Dracula's pretty much, I don't know, the portrayal of Dracula, it doesn't it's kind of off a little bit. Now, normally with Dracula, you get kind of the animalistic side, and then you get kind of the classy, sophisticated. He kind of talks it up like the Bela Lugosi's or your Gary Oldmans or Christopher Lee, where you can impersonate a human, but here he's just pretty much animalistic the entire time, with a few little moments where he kind of talks. You don't really get it doesn't feel really like Dracula. It just feels like another random vampire monster thing that they just call Dracula. And I think the take on Dracula is kind of the weaker aspects of the film. And it's kind of unfortunate, because the whole film is kind of built around Dracula on this ship. And yeah, he's in an animalistic state. And plus the rules of the vampire within this film, it's kind of tricky sometimes with vampire movies, because you have kind of your set ideas of what the rules are, but here it's not really fully established, like a crucifix and that you think would be kind of a weakness for a vampire, but that's not really the case here. Sunlight is, as evidenced by what happens in the film. But yeah, it's just pretty much Dracula in this kind of bat form. He flies around like he's the creeper from Jeepers Creepers, and he's going around eating and drinking everyone's blood. And there's a few kind of hokey bits within the film that kind of hold it back a little bit, where they kind of become a little bit unintentionally funny. But I think for the most part, with the directing and the acting from all the actors involved, was really good all around. I think Corey Hawkins did a really good job as this lead character, who's this doctor who kind of gets put aboard the ship and is there to kind of look out for everyone. But everyone else, I think there's no real bad acting. I think the production value and the setting for it, it's all top tier stuff, and I like the concept of it. I like having a period piece Dracula film. I just think it didn't quite pack the punch in terms of scares, and the take on Dracula is a little bit iffy, because they're definitely going for a bit of an alien vibe with Dracula, kind of like the xenomorph, just kind of crawling around the ship and kind of stalking everybody. But he's kind of missing the mannerisms and the personality of Dracula that kind of makes him stand out, because Dracula impersonates people, as you know, but here you don't really get that vibe from this character. You don't get the stealthiness quite as it's just the little mannerisms where Dracula can kind of fool you, he's hypnotic. He's just pretty much just a random bat creature that's on the ship, and it just felt a little bit off for me. I think it could have just gone a little bit further with making it feel more like Dracula, to kind of push this movie forward a little bit, because he's pretty much just some random bat creature. Like, he could just replace this with the Creeper from Jeepers Creepers. You kind of get the same deal. Although the Creeper has a little bit more personality, because like they kind of have him like full blown monster creature, but they kind of add those little personality tweaks in there where he's smiling, and then occasionally he'll say something, but he doesn't really talk like a person. It's like a like kind of like that. Just felt a little bit off for me, but all things considered, I did enjoy the movie overall. I think there's some strong aspects to it. Like I said, the casting, Barry McCreary's score is quite good, the production value, and there's some solid directing all around with it. It just, the scares didn't quite hit the mark for me, and Dracula was a little bit off for me, but all things considered, I did have a pretty good time with it. And if you're looking for something that's more of a period piece horror film, it doesn't quite pack the scares, but it does have some intense scenes. I think this one is a film that a lot of people can kind of enjoy overall. So is it my favorite horror movie of the year? No, I'd still go with Renfield, because, well, I mean, that was like darkly funny, but this one is just kind of, it's a far more straightforward, serious film with some good aspects to it. But I don't know if I call it my favorite horror film of the year. I'm waiting to be wowed in terms of horror movies this year. Nothing's quite hit the full mark of being like, wow, that was really amazing in terms of what I've seen so far this year. Like, there's no horror film that's really been like, wow, I really can't wait to like see that thing again, unless you count Renfield. But that's more horror comedy, and it definitely leans more almost action comedy than straight up horror movie. So I don't know, it just, we're not quite there yet in terms of horror films this year, but this one is a pretty decent one overall. So anyways, if you've seen the movie, or have any thoughts or questions about it, what's your favorite Dracula film? Let me know in the comments section down below. Be sure to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the YouTube channel for more content, all the other fun stuff. And yeah, that's going to wrap it up for this thing. Thanks so much for watching. As always, take care now. Bye-bye then, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.